Good afternoon. Welcome back to the B&H virtual event space. You are tuned in to finding joy, passion, and purpose through photography, hosted by Sony. So we'd like to thank them, and we'd like to welcome back a close friend of the show, Mr. Chris Orwig. Chris, what's going on, man?
Oh man, it's so good to be here. And I'm so excited to talk about this topic. And then also, as we were saying right before the show, I was going for a trail run. I kind of got lost. So I had to run so fast to get back and make it on time. So I'm kind of fired up. I'm like so excited to be here.
You were ready. I've been waiting for this
Yeah.
for a while now. I mean, I think this topic has been on my mind incessantly lately. So I know you always do a great job of taking us where not a lot of photographers take us. So I'm going to turn it over to you, let you do your thing. We have a special treat for today for those of you who have been tuning in with us the last couple of years. This will be an extra special treat. Or if you never have and it's your first time watching, you'll still enjoy it. So, Chris, turn it over to you and I'll see you in a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe hang out just for a second because let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about kind of some foundation of this. I have slides and we're going to get into some great content, but part of where this comes from for me is I taught at a photography school for a decade, and I would have students who would get burnt out, and they would get so burnt out, they would get to the point where they said, "I never want to do photography again." And that at first I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is like crushing my spirit." And I started to ask them like, why? What happened? What went wrong? And then I would also talk to people who just have this like joy and enthusiasm and passion, and they're like on fire as they do photography. And then I found both of those things show up in myself. And so the question for you, just to start it off, do you experience that as well? Like sometimes you're burned out, sometimes you're on fire.
Currently burnt. I think I get burnt out at least once a year. If I'm not burnt out once a year, I'm not working hard enough or putting enough in the rest of the year, which I think it's a healthy it's a healthy back and forth. You put in the work. It's like the problem of, well, you want the work, you want the business, you want to stay busy. So
Right.
then you do that, and then you get to a point where you're like, okay, now I need a break.
Yeah.
So it's healthy. It's give and take.
Talk, talk to me a little bit about the burnout. What are give me some of the texture or quality of that. Let's compare it to toast. Is it like toast that's burnt you can scrape off the top? Or are you burned out like you gotta throw it away?
You're throwing it out. You're not. There's no. I'm not even. I'm
No,
not even taking that knife out to have to wash it after scraping that toast off because I already know that it's we're sitting with a giant crouton.
yeah.
That's how burnt out.
Okay, the kitchen. You do have to like open the window because there's smoking and everything.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So
fanning.
there's that level of burnout, and then there's also a level that happened to us. This was a year ago. We have a little toaster oven, nice toaster oven from whatever nice store, and it auto shuts off, all those things do. But one time it didn't, and we left the house and came back like an hour later, and the handle had melted off. Everything around it was like super warm. It was glowing. It would have burned our house down if we hadn't have
Oh,
done it. And it was one of those moments like, wow, that's kind of scary. So there is the full meltdown burnout as well.
I'm
But you're
glad I
not
haven't.
there.
I got
Are you melted?
two fire extinguishers in my kitchen, so I think I've put things in place. I put systems in place
Okay.
so that I don't get to that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's kind of like, think of it as I call it like my human surge protector.
Yeah.
Before you blow the entire circuit, you
Yeah.
have something that gets tripped, and it's just like, okay, I realize I'm at that point where I need to pivot.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just putting the camera down, which
Yeah.
it's funny because I actually got advice from you that changed my life. And this was before we really became cool.
Okay.
But you had talked about shooting your way out of a slump. And it was transformational for me because I had always just been like, when I'm in a slump, I'm going to put the camera down. And from that moment, I'm like, you know what? This guy seems like he gets it. He's like chill, he's vibey, his great body of work. Why not? Why not change my approach? And it worked so well. And then I hit a point where I'm like, okay, there's just certain times where I need to put the camera down, but still foster my creativity. So drawing has been a great way of doing that. And even drawing on like my Wacom tablet isn't enough. Analog with a pen on the back of whatever paper I can find, because it takes me back to how I used to draw when I'd be drawing all over everything I could find as a kid. And it just kind of awakens my creativity and makes me feel like I'm not sleeping at the wheel. And then when I get to the point where whatever happens and I get remotivated to pick the camera back up, the batteries are recharged. I go back out with a new zest for seeing the world and photographing it. And I go back into the cycle.
I love it. I love it, man. And maybe to just tie it back into this whole idea that I think this topic, like I just welcome anyone to this topic wherever you're at. Meltdown, maybe just the toast slightly burned, or maybe you're on fire and you're going and you want more. And that's where this is going to be relevant. And I'll add one more little narrative, which really helped me, which was I received a really kind email from someone that had read one of my books and said, the last few years, I have been a caretaker for my husband in the last years of his life, and he has since died. And after he died, someone gave me your book. And before I was a caretaker for him, I was a photographer. But during that time, I was so involved with that. And she said, and since reading your book, I haven't started taking pictures, but I did take my camera bag out of the closet, take my camera out of the bag, and it's sitting on the coffee table. Thank you. I was like, wow, that's like the best compliment anyone could ever receive, which is maybe what I'm trying to get at is taking wherever we are and exploring what steps can help. And for me, sometimes it is like, just take the camera out of the bag. I wanted to curse there for a second. I don't know if I can curse. Take it out of the dang bag, right? Or like, yeah, just there it is. Or sometimes it's like, pick it up, like you said, shoot your way out of something. Other times it's tuck it away, but it's finding those steps that we need to take wherever we're at. So with that in mind, let me dive into some slides, and we'll talk more later. But let's dive into some visual, because visual content's always helpful for me. Wait 1 second. Let me just do share screen. There we go. And then just give me the heads up if you can see my screen okay.
Yes, sir. We see it.
Okay, good. So this idea of kind of photography and how it can help us find joy, passion, and purpose. And I think for me, it's anchored in this concept that photography is one of the easiest art forms to practice if you compare it to sculpture, painting, pottery, but it's one of the hardest to have our own style. It's really, really hard. So photography, it's a strange, weird paradox that the gear is so good, whether you're shooting with your mobile device or amazing camera, but it's really, really hard to have your own style, which also means it's hard to be satisfied. It's hard to create something where you're like, yes, that was mine. And I think one of the things we can do, we have to kind of admit that, lean into that, and realize that an era of photography is over. And that's the era where, like, if you have the right tools or the right technique, or maybe you have some novel way of shooting, or you capture something new, or maybe there's this high need for photography, like all that era, that's freaking over. But there's a new era beginning, and we're in it. And it's this era of meaning, of story, of humanity. I even would say love. It's like love what we're photographing, and love filling up our frames. And for me, that means just capturing moments. My 2 daughters on the left, or family friends in the other frames, capturing moments at the beach, photographing strangers, photographing celebrities, photographing a painter, doing commercial work, editorial work, whatever it is, and trying to bring in something new. And in this case, travel stuff, where when I was backpacking with friends and lugging my camera along with me up in the mountains snow camping, or last time I was in New York, or photographing architecture, and all these things, they give me this, like, it's not just happiness, it's not just instant gratification, that's kind of cheap, it's a little bit more. It's like, yes, this is life. And sometimes it's capturing a decisive moment, sometimes it's photographing, and we'll talk more about this photo later, but the tree I grew up climbing in my backyard, my childhood backyard, and something that's meaningful to us. And so if we haven't met, if you don't know me, I'm a bit of a goofball. I love adventure. I love living life to the full tilt in whatever way it is. One of my goals in life is to have a certain amount of equanimity, so that no matter what happens, there's a sense of stoke, a sense of smile, a sense of gratitude and appreciation. even when I broke my favorite surfboard. But and part of that comes from I've had 4 near-death experiences. Those are long stories: rock climbing, skateboarding, surfing, different things. And so I just love life. And for me, photography is really deeply valuable. I've done a number of books, the last 2, portraiture, creativity. I do a lot of coaching and mentoring with people, and that's really about taking people from 0 to hero, wherever their starting point is, that's 0, and then going further. And I love doing that work. If anyone's interested, it's on my website there, just .com/coaching. I'm a Sony Artisan, which is one of my biggest passions in life. So I'll talk a little bit about gear now, and I'm going to weave this into our theme too, but I shoot with Sony gear and my mobile device for all my commercial editorial work. This is the setup I use most frequently: Sony A1, R5s, and then this suite of lenses. Do I have more lenses than this? Yes. Sadly, those other lenses don't get a lot of use. These are the ones that get used the most. And here's some sample images with those 24 to 70. That's in Italy. That's a commercial thing. Again, 24 to 70 stuff here. You get a feel for that. 85 is what I really use for all my close-up portraits. And I love that 85 G Master lens. And then for mobile, this is like a car window while I'm waiting, or at an office on the right while I'm waiting for a meeting. This was last time I was in New York. I'm just noticing things. And I love how the phone allows you to just capture stuff when you're on a bike ride, when you're camping in Joshua Tree, when the fair comes to your town. And so with this idea, now that you kind of know a little bit about who I am and about what this is, getting to this idea of joy, passion, and purpose, I think one of the starting points, and Derek, this is where I'm going to ask you a question in a second, is to begin to define our why. And to really ask ourselves, like, why the heck do we do this? There's so many things we can do in the world. We could do yoga or mountain biking or play video games or play soccer or whatever it is. Why photography? So let me jump out of the slide deck. I have more slides, but I just want to jump out for a second. And Derek, just to get some dialogue going, and also if anyone's listening and want to add in, hit me with, why do you practice photography?
I love the way photos make me feel. I love looking at images from the past, and specifically images from my past.
Tell me
and
more.
Being instantly taken back to that moment, feeling feelings that you completely forgotten. And it's one of those things where it's like, you ever have a smell trigger a memory?
Yes.
And you're like, oh my God, like that took me back somewhere, and you can't even explain it. And it's gone. The feeling's gone just as quick as it happened. But it's like, it's so sweet that little moment. It's like, I studied English romantic literature in college, and it's, all the English romantics, it was like a spot of time, that was one of the themes, was a spot of time where it's like, just this moment in time that you experience, and it's the sweetest thing. And that's what photos do for me. And having a record of things I've lived through, it only gets more important the older I get, and the further I get away from those moments, and the more I forget without the help of having a photo to look back on. I look at my photos so often, and I found that, that's why it's interesting that you have this talk today, because this has been something that's been pressing on my mind lately as I've been in that, those winter doldrums are setting in. I've been demotivated in my own personal work, and I've started to question, what is my purpose in photography? Am I taking images that
or in
mean
life,
something?
by
Or
the
in
way.
life, exactly. Because there's
it's connected.
there's such a tie. Yeah, there
Yeah,
really
keep
is.
going on.
And it's like, my images, I look back at images and I'm just like, what does this image do for me?
Yeah.
And a lot of it ties into the culture of photography as it relates to social media, because it's a part of our life. I know we've talked about this ad nauseum in general as a society about, what is photography as it relates to social media and all that. And we've become, it's become content. We've reduced stuff to just, okay, putting stuff out for the consumption of others. But what are we doing for ourselves?
Yes.
What are we
yes.
creating for ourselves?
Yeah, and that's why I kind of was talking about the era of photography over. Like, I'm just going to call it out. The era of social media is over. Like, it used to be you could shoot and you get all these likes and it would be amazing. That's done. And so the era of doing it for yourself is here. And that's what's beautiful. So there's kind of a reclamation that I think can happen in photography right now because because adding our own meaning to it is kind of all that matters. And it's kind of beautiful in a way. I think like my dad used to practice photography before I was born, and he had all this darkroom supplies, and there's these pictures he made and stuff. And then once he had us, my kids, myself, my brother and sister and I, he stopped, and it always made me so sad. And it also planted a seed for me in this interest in photography. But I guess the point was, what I was trying to say was, back in that era of photography, you just did it because you loved it and because it was good for your soul and it was interesting and fascinating. No one ever saw his pictures. And I love that my dad did that. And I think that planted the seed in me. That's something I want to do. And it's kind of nice because the noise of like, of photography or of novelty or of like having the right tool or something, there's so much noise that it allows for us to find our own voice. Does that make sense?
Totally.
In saying that,
Totally.
isn't that kind of
Yeah. Hope you froze on us there. Gonna wait for Chris to unfreeze here. Let him finish that thought.
testing, testing,
There you go.
testing?
All right. We got you
We're
back
back.
now.
Okay, okay.
It makes total sense. And it makes me think of something. If I can, let me see if I can find the right analogy. I have an analogy, but I don't know how appropriate it is for the airwaves. But when you build a foundation, right? And when you have it's like the old adage of building a house on sand.
Yep.
And you build a house on sand, doesn't matter how nice it is. One big wave comes in and it knocks it down. But when you build a house on rock, it's going to withstand that wave. And I feel like analog photography pre-social media,
Yeah.
there was no other reason to do it. It's
Yeah.
like you said, there was no other reason to do it other than because you loved it or you were recording and documenting.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah.
because you have that, and I think those are much more pure motives for doing it, so that when you strip away all the filth of social media, all the likes and the comments and the follows and all these base level serotonin hits, you strip that all away. What do you have left? So someone that comes into photography in this era and who's doing it for the serotonin hit based on other people's approval, the second that goes away, I know photographers that have 500,000 followers and they're like, nothing. I don't get anything. Like there's no engagement, there's no interaction. They realize Instagram's a business and they don't do it for that. They're doing it for the reasons that we do it because we
Yeah.
love it, because we're passionate about it. So you know what happens when all that engagement, when all that interaction goes away? Guess what? You still have your rock, you still have your base. But when you come into
Foundation.
it and you're doing it for those reasons, once those reasons go, when we move on, like you nailed it, the social media era is over. Nobody's nobody's joining Instagram and amassing a ton of followers and getting all these big sponsorship deals and making $1 million per post. You're not. The wave is over, even for people that were successful 5-10 years ago in a way that was easier. What do you have left? What are you left to stand on? And these are the people who are now, where do they focus their energy? It's negative energy that they focus on. Well, why is Instagram? Why did Instagram change? And why did social media change? And it's like, it never changed. It was a business. It still is a business. It was never
Yeah.
about you. It was about them. You made it about that. But because you don't have an actual genuine reason for doing photography, for practicing the art, the craft, what are you left with? You're left with
Totally.
exactly what you came in with.
And that, I think we can lean into that. It's beautiful. I'm just going to read a couple of comments. Melissa said, "I love that a good photo evokes emotion. Smell triggers are real." Yes, and it's emotion, and it's like the triggering of that. And then Britton said, um, about doing photography and what's up, Britain, by the way, got me seeing the world like my young children. Yeah, like there's these reasons to do photography that it's also, I found it's really good for my mental health. The last session we talked about Zen and peace and cultivating that. I found it's helped me through really deep, dark times. There's so many reasons. Okay, someone else says, has the world Earth become so boring that photography is no longer valid? Or is it now a change in perspective, a personal journey? Well, I think the Earth is fascinating. But I think what's happened is, like when the advent of writing came along, if we think about that for a second, basically Gutenberg took a grape press, and he attached letters to it. And then he learned, rather than crushing grapes, he could press letters onto paper and created the first printing press out of old materials, right? And then suddenly he made the Gutenberg Bible, all that stuff. And then, the literature that came up initially was travel literature. It was like, show me the world, and everyone could find the world now in these written words. And photography was a little bit like that as well. Like, think of it was like National Geographic. You would see some corner of the world you'd never seen before, and it was like your one chance to see it. Now we can see it gazillion times. And so it's just the novelty is gone. Or I actually did a project in a museum where, you know how Google Earth, you kind of zoom in on the Earth? It was like an early prototype of Google Earth. And in the museum, they would zoom out on the whole planet, then come into a location, and it was like mind blowing. Now you just do that on your browser, and you can look up my house and see my front yard. And so it's more the novelty's worn off. And so as it's become more normalized, when anything becomes more normalized, what then matters is story. It's narrative. It's what matters to us. Anais Nin has this great quote, kind of summing up, I think, what you said. She said, "We write to taste life twice, in the moment and in retrospect." And she was a famous writer. I think in photography, we might be able to say, we photograph to taste, to experience, to savor life 10 times in the moment. And then again, and then again, and again, and again. And in preparation for this talk, I went back to photographs I captured in 2003, and I was looking through, why was I shooting back then? What was it? And then what are the threads that continue to this day? Let me jump back to my slides, because I want to keep going. Does that sound good, Derek?
Totally.
Jump back to slides. Okay. And when I thought about why photography, there's a lot of reasons, but the essential thing is that we all start to come up with our own. Photography gives me clarity, connection. I'll be in other countries and I'll connect kindness from people. It's a way to serve and support others, the gift of photography. It's really ignites creativity. The more I do photography, the more creative I am as a parent, as a friend, all the things. Movement. I love how photography requires us to move our feet and to be in motion and also still. It really helped me to cultivate stillness, silence, serenity, depth, love, and light. Just like a love of light, just like noticing light, just like light is everything, right? In so many ways. So I think what we need to do is really think about that question of what a why is. Next, I want to share some kind of intention or exercises that we can do wherever you're at. So kind of whatever your zero is, how do you go to hero? One of them is to start photographing in an autobiographical way. Your camera roll or the photos on your card, however you capture images, is autobiographical. You are writing your biography. And if I were to take your phone and project it up on a screen in front of 100 people, I could tell and figure out the story of your life. And so what we have to do, though, is not do that accidentally, but do that intentionally. So for me, this was revisiting this tree that I went to as a kid. I had a 16 to 35 millimeter lens. I got a little bit of the sun in the top right corner. I got it in the wintertime when the grass is green. My family, I have this vivid memory of having a picnic right by this tree and flying kites. I have this memory of my brother way up in those branches. I have one time when one of the branches broke on that and someone fell off a branch, and then the tree behind it, we had this rope swing. Okay, whole point, tree really matters to me. It's not just wow, that's a beautiful tree. That's not enough in photography anymore. It needs to be my beautiful tree. It needs to be something about my story, or more importantly, your story. So first thing I want you to start thinking about, or give yourself an exercise, start photographing autobiographically. Photograph things that tell your story. That is immensely important. Another one, this was backpacking. I was snow camping, and I'll show another picture from that. But photograph in a way that changes your perspective and point of view on the world. We get stuck in these worldviews. We have political, religious, all the things, worldviews. The beauty of photography, and why we love practicing photography, the intention we can bring to it to add more joy, purpose, and passion, is to really think about, okay, in this case, this is kind of cheesy, but cut me some slack. I once heard someone said, like, if the outlook is bad, try the uplook, or something like that, but as photographers, we do that. We're like, okay, if I'm looking straight at a tree and I photographed it, that wasn't very cool. Then I looked up, and it was this deep blue winter sky. This is in the high Sierras, and there were all these little buds on the branches. And it reminded me of one of my favorite poems, which is by Eugene Peterson. He talks about this tree going through its cycle, and it talks about the tree losing its leaves, and then the tree being empty again in wise poverty. And the line of the poem basically says, sometimes we need to let go of things in life in order to grow and expand. And it's just a beautiful poetic way to say that. But the point of view, changing that, the camera helping me, being like, Chris, you're a photographer. Don't shoot at eye level. Don't just capture it like you normally do. Look around. And you can find these little wisdom things. And sometimes that means, again, here, surfing above the water or below the water. I love both. I love the surface of life. I love the fun. I love skating along the surface. I love the flow. I love the glide. But you know what? I can't live without depth. And these two images, they help me relive that truth 10 times, 11 times, 15 times over and over again. And let photography be something that helps expand the way you see the world. Next, let it put into perspective who you are and where you are. Like, where have you been? Like, in this case, this was backpacking, and I hiked up ahead of my friend. He's way down there. You can't even see him. And we came down from a valley way off to the left. You couldn't even, if our tent was in the shot, you couldn't even see it. It wouldn't be visible. But this picture, just like beautiful mountains, and I took it, but then I kind of realized, this is about the sense of awe and feeling small in this big, wondrous world. Photography gives us the ability to do that. And this can be in the mountains. It can also be with architecture. Sometimes I look at a building and I'm just like, wow, like this is showing me this like sense of scale, sense of space. And these are just some intention ideas that I'm throwing out there, right? Next, photograph what matters to you. This is my best friend in the world, Martin. We were on the surf trip, and this was from years ago, but I love the photo. And it's not because it's like I hired a model and I had him go to the swing in Mexico and we took a good picture that was a lifestyle photo. It's like, no, this is my brother. This is someone who means the world to me. And what I found by people who burn out with photography is they start taking photographs of stuff that they think should be interesting, but it isn't interesting to them. Even more, it isn't meaningful to them. This bride, I love this photo. It's only a wedding photo I think I've taken that I really like, but it's a dear family friend, Claire. And so it matters to me. It's not like I hired a bride and we did this thing. This was a real thing. This is a real person. Chris Burkhardt, he inspires me immensely. Two of the biggest challenges of my life, I did a 250-mile bike ride with him and a 200-mile ride. And those were life-changing. And so he's someone who's changed my life and enriched my life. Yes, he has 3 million followers on Instagram. Yes, he's really cool. Yes, he does all this awesome stuff. But I don't care about all that stuff. I care about that he's impacted me. I need a picture of him to remind myself of that impact. This is another guy, Daniel Norris, baseball player. In the off season, at the time, he was living in this van, and he would do his laundry at the laundromat, and it was his way to stay connected and grounded. And he's a deep, 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 dear, important friend. And so it's not like a surfer with a van. This matters to me. This is a yoga teacher who has had a great impact on my life in profound ways. She matters to me. This is my daughter, Sophie. She really matters to me. These are all great photographs, but you're getting that in order to keep things going, to keep the fire alive. these intentions can help. And of course, there are others, but the one that matters to you really, I think, is really big. This is my daughter, this is my mom. So it's easy to photograph, let's say, models, it's easy to photograph for clients, but like to photograph your own parent, that's really hard. And I've done that with both of my parents because I didn't want to have good photos of other people, but not of my own family, right? And so that I'm a total family man. Family is everything for me. So that matters to me. All right, maybe I should just pause right there because I'm jamming. I'm like going on all this stuff. I have more slides. Let me just stop sharing. Let me bring Derek back up
You're on a
because he's going to
roll.
ground us. And Derek, what's coming in, man?
I love the connection to family. And I think that I've started photographing my family more because that's what's meaningful and that's what's going to be meaningful years from now. I tell people all the time, you look back, it doesn't matter what your most liked picture was or your most heralded picture by anyone else. 30 years from now, what's going to be the picture that evokes the most emotion for me? What are the images that I'm going to feel the most when I look back at? And I love the way you capture your family. Whenever you show pictures of your family, it's always such beautiful captures. And I'm like, man, I can get my son like that. My mother, man, I have to trick my mother to try to get a picture of her.
It's hard.
And it is. And it's like, I don't want to be all morbid about it, but our parents aren't going to be here forever. Right.
Yeah.
And I think nothing has made me realize the importance of a portrait like losing someone. And whether that's somebody that I met on the street, I have so many stories that I could tell of people that I met one time in the street, or one time and been impacted them and not even known it or been impacted by them. And then came to found out that they passed away. And I was like, man, that one picture I took of them. I had somebody's friends reach out to me. He was a kid, I met him one time. Great story. I'll have to tell you one time, but they ended up reaching out. And the reason they reached out to me was to let me know that he had passed away. And they wanted to use the image that I took of him when I met him for his funeral. They wanted to print it out and have it up on a remembrance board. And it really sunk in at that moment that the power of a portrait, that we connect to our subjects. Photographers who are really doing it for the right reason connect. You capture a piece of somebody, you capture a piece of their soul when you photograph them. So when I look at the images of your family, it's not just, hey, I'm just taking a picture of family. It's like you're really photographing them. You're really taking the essence of who they are and your connection to them. And I envy that. I really do envy that you have such a way to connect with people. And that's what makes your images so powerful. I've always told you it's way beyond the technical stuff. Yeah, you got the technical stuff down. We all know that. We can tell that just by looking at your images.
Yeah, but
But
that
there's
era's
something
over.
there's something deeper,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's a connection. It's like you feel, it's the difference in looking at an image and being, okay, it's aesthetically pleasing, and really being moved by an image and feeling an image.
Yep. Yeah. And I would say too, I mean, that, obviously I photograph in a certain way and we all do, and I think to all of us in this conversation is like thinking about how do you capture, like, I like to work up close, no surprise. Some people like to work more from a distance. Maybe they want the photograph they want of their dad is he loves golf and him on this, he played Pebble Beach one time and you have him like in the moment and big golf course, small person. And that's the perfect portrait of your dad, like in his happy place. I'm inventing this narrative. If that's the way you photograph, or maybe to throw something out, maybe you're more journalistic and it's like your dad, after he played golf, he's with his buddies and they're laughing and it's like this, they're just giving each other, kind of, they're making fun of each other, and you kind of capture this candid moment. That's the way you document life. Then do that. I mean, that's going to bring you joy, passion, and all purpose and all this kind of stuff. And so, and I'm just saying this because sometimes I think what happens is, when we look at other people's photographs who are good, they're technically good, they're emotionally good, evokes all the right things, is we think, oh, I need to do that. But we don't. We have to find our own thing and our own why. And maybe the why is, I just love candid, real moments. And you're just like a journalist. And then it's like, yeah, do that. Get these candid, real moments and like really, really revel in that. And if you don't like pose stuff, stop doing that. That's just going to burn you out. I was and do the thing that is kind of lighting you up.
What lights you up? When you
Uh,
look back at your images, I mean, I know you just shared some
yeah,
images of and
yeah,
that really move you.
yeah.
What makes you pick up your camera these days?
Yeah, what I'm gonna it actually Melissa said from Vimeo, she said, I love that you can be in a crowd of people or a city street and you put your camera up to your face and you transport yourself into your own world, your creative niche. And that resonated with me that I often I get overwhelmed by life for whatever reason. Um, and so like at a base level, the practice of like putting on the blinders does light me up. Like I almost like I don't know, I could go in my backyard and just be like, oh wow, like that's interesting when I'm just looking at one thing versus many things. So finding the one of many is and finding that moment, finding that interior space, listening to that. So that's one. And then I'd say second is I'm really looking for people who are further along in mastery of the art of living. So I want to photograph people who have something I want to cultivate in myself. So that can take on many different forms, but I'm it's kind of funny, but I'm like photographing to like up level my life, if that makes sense.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And so um, I don't get excited, and but usually you can find that in almost anyone, but I especially like pursuing those people that where that's there. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
because it gives you a chance to connect with them, and then you learn. Like, what did I just learn recently? Let me think of one photo thing I did. Oh, let me just think. Let me just think. Well, it was a family photo shoot actually, and there was this little boy, and he wouldn't smile, and he was really overwhelmed, and he just wasn't complying to the moment, right? It was like kind of like, kid, get your stuff together. This is we've hired this person, but the way the parent dealt with him so tenderly and let him be where he was and then eventually work through that was kind of beautiful. And I was like, oh yeah, right. We can't force stuff. And so even that, I was like, yeah, I loved capturing that moment because it reminded me um, there's certain emotional states we're in or people we're around are in, and you can't just have them snap out of it as much as we would like to think we can or make it funny or silly. We got to let it move through them. Is that fair? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So let me I think we should do jump to some slides and then we're going to bring in our special guest here in a minute. So
Love it.
so
Love
let
it.
me
Special guest, get ready.
get ready, special guest. This is going to be awesome. Okay, back to the screen. Can we see the screen? Yes, I think so. Okay, here's another little intention to add is really collaborating with the camera. And think of your camera as like your sidekick or your friend or your companion, and think of it as this companion that just sees the world totally objectively. And so when you take the picture, and this is with my phone, and you're like, this is amazing. The camera is like, what's so amazing about this? I don't, and you're like, what's the piano? Don't you see the piano over there? And it's like, no, go get closer to it. So you're like, okay, I'll go get closer to it. And then you do that, and the camera's like, well, it just kind of looks like a box. And you're like, oh, you're right. And then you say, well, what if I go at an angle? And then I think your camera's like, well, okay. And you're like, okay, you're right. I need to be above and then shoot down, and I need to show that I'm on top of the mountains, kind of thing. And so, really, kind of approaching it in this way, where you have this like inner dialogue, and it's this inner dialogue of finding, of exploring, of collaborating, because that's really how we get to that point of going from just some picture that's like, we think it's amazing. And I think in photography they'll say get closer, which is true, but it's more than getting closer. It's like asking yourself, what is the story? What am I trying to convey? What's here? Because while you're there in the mountains and it's cold and it's freezing, you biked up there and the sun's about to rise, and my dog's scratching on the door. Let me let her in real quick. Okay, come on in, Daisy. This is my 13-year-old Golden. The camera doesn't know that. Same kind of thing. Walking up our steps to front of our house, and I see California. Oh, hang on. Now I have two dogs. This might get a little crazy, but we'll roll with it. I see the poppies, and I'm like, yes, those are so beautiful. And the camera's like, that's not beautiful. That looks like a mess. And there's like some falling on the ground. And you're like, okay, well, how about this? And the camera's like, yeah, now you're talking, Chris. And all I did was get closer, and it's just an iPhone. And I just like figured out, I put the purple plants behind them. I got close enough so the camera could see the dew. And then, and I think I just threw on like the first filter and photos, whatever, to like saturate the colors or something. But really kind of have that collaborative sense and really going through it and really doing that, in case people, when you don't get there, what you want, kind of driving towards what you do want, and going from this to that. And I've talked about process, and a lot of the process comes from the story you want to tell. And I've shared this photo before, but a big wheel in a field behind our house. And then I said, what if the kids play on it? And then I asked my daughter, and I said, what if you stand on it, jump up, and then land back on the wheel? And what that does is it helps us to tell this story. And so this all gets to this idea of intention. And if we want to take good pictures, it's not like, well, get low to the ground, have a tire, and ask your daughter to jump, and that will then lead to a good photo. It's like, no, it's like really collaborating with this moment. It's really like leaning in. It's really asking yourself these questions. And then this is my last slide, and which is this idea of what story also needs to be told that I'm unaware of. And sometimes this goes back to like your comment about when you photographed that guy and they wanted to use the photo from the memorial. It's a long story. I won't share the story now, but literally that dog in the picture, and this is my sister's family, saved my brother-in-law there, and the little guy Ryan. He's now much older, but they say he saved their life. A power line went down their yard. They were walking through the yard. The dog had gotten electrocuted and died. It's really tragic. But had they not seen that, they would have walked into the puddle, and then they would have been electrocuted. And I didn't know that when I was taking the picture, that I was going to take a photo of this. Kind of, you're like, when you take a photo, like, come on, I just want to get a photo of you guys. I don't really know why, but you got to learn to trust this and almost channel this inner instinct you have. And a lot of good photographs come from that intention. So I shared some different intentions, in the slide, maybe jumping backwards just to kind of highlight a few. I know I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here and zoom in on it. But autobiographical stuff is really important. Stuff to change your point of view, show your sense of scale, do stuff that matters to you, whatever it is that matters to you, get out there and do that. Collab with your camera, like, come on camera, like help, like listen to the voice, talk to it, get there, help go from this to that, look at storytelling, and then also just be open to instinct. And a lot of photographers will share with you that their best photos come from, they don't know where. They're just like, well, I just kind of thought I should go down this alley, and then there was this thing. And part of that's tuning in. And when you tune in and you have those moments like you had, the special moment of photographing that guy or something, it's like, oh my gosh, this matters. And this is more than a shiny camera and a cool lens. This is life itself, and I'm grateful to be participating in that. And it's not us imposing or something on the world. It's us kind of calming and listening. And I would say a lot of fine art photographers do this. They're so calm and still that they can hear these things the rest of us aren't hearing. They photograph this tree, and we just are like, oh my gosh, that's speaking to me. And it's because it was speaking to them. And so I think that's a big part of it as well. Um, so what's coming in for you with that? You always are so good at reflecting or summarizing or asking more, and then we'll get our guest.
I've just been thinking everything you've been saying has been so on point and it's so needed in this industry. There's such a tie between art and life. You can't appreciate art, you can't create your best art if you're not centered, if you're not grounded. Nah, I mean, there's an argument there to be made. Some of my most down times, I created some of my best
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
work, but you can't really appreciate it like you can when you have that moment where you're just really, like you said, just really tapped in. And I think it's about that. It's being tapped in. And
yeah.
out of everything that we've talked about, purpose is so important. And I think even just purpose alone, if people were to add purpose, you'll find passion, you'll
Yeah.
find joy. But I see purpose as such a building block because purpose relates to importance. And if something's not important to you, you won't enjoy it and you won't continue to do it and you won't stay with it to thrive.
Yeah, and even like, I mean, we could just go to wedding photography. Sometimes, let's say I think of, because I'll photograph friends' weddings and stuff, and they're like, "Do we really need to do these photos?" Even the bride and groom, and I'm like, you know what? I don't think these photos are even for you guys, because they'll be like, "We don't need more photos of ourselves," and I'm like, "But really, they're for your kids someday. They're gonna be like, wow, look at mom. That's what she looked like back in 2023. That's so crazy." Or they're for your parents. Your parents are gonna love to send this out on their Christmas card. And anyway, this is getting to the purpose. And I think sometimes as photography has shifted, as the era has ended, some of us photographers are like, well, what's our purpose? Like, do I really need to take this photo? I mean, there's so many photos. Or let's just say you go to a concert and everyone literally has their phone up and they're filming or taking whatever, usually filming, but it's like, do I really need to do this? I could just get it from someone else's. And it's like, well, yeah, we do, because it's part of our story. It's our autobiography. And it goes back to earlier in photography. I remember someone saying like I would go and I would photograph, like one of my pictures was the Golden Gate Bridge. And they said, like, dude, we don't need another photograph of the Golden Gate Bridge. And I'm like, yeah, we don't, but I need a photograph of it
Mhm.
because I love that bridge. And I grew up going there and I lived near San Francisco. And so it has nothing to do with what the world needs, it has everything to do with what I need. And there's that purpose isn't like, well, I'm going to create something that will get a lot of likes. I don't even actually care, but I love that picture. and um, and it makes me think, what do I love about that bridge? And I love old bridge design versus new bridge design. And anyway, that's a whole other story, but there's a deeper purpose. Okay, let's bring on our special guest, which is Danny. Are you there? And Danny, can you come on?
I'm here. Thank you so much for
Yes,
having me.
yes. This
There
I
he
is
wouldn't I
is.
wouldn't do this for just anybody, so you should
okay.
know that.
This is special. This is special. And part of it, we were talking about, well, one, I love Danny. Everyone loves Danny. I mean, he has this amazing smile and personality and energy. Now I'm going to make him really embarrassed, but just has this like this spirit which you want to be around Danny. And so and beforehand we were talking about this idea of photography, and I was asking, and I'll ask again, um, just for the sake of all of us, when was the last time you did practice photography, and and then how come you're not, you had mentioned it's been a little while, and how come you're not practicing it? Like, hit me with that.
Yeah, I mean it's really been a while since I've like actually gone out and shot. I mean I want to say like 2 years maybe. It's a long
Okay.
time. I I think it's it's hard for me to find I've always identified with like the aesthetic aspect of photography, but like I think drilling down and finding the purpose, like that's almost like a scary thing to think about. It's like challenging. It's like that takes too much like brain power, so it's easier to just like not do it and
Yeah.
put the camera down and not like worry about it. So maybe that's why I haven't
Yeah.
done it in a long
And then
time.
you
Also
also
time.
time. You also said time, which
Right.
which I thought was so cool, because for all of us, there are reasons why we don't do certain things. And I could say the same thing. Like you could ask me, like, Chris, when was the last time you went and photographed the ocean? Because you're like, Chris, you love the ocean. You live in a beach town. And I would probably say, it's probably been like 5 years. And then you could ask me like, well, why? And I would say like, well, because if I do it, it really has, I kind of want it to be good and I kind of need to have purpose. And I'm just not, I have kids and I'm doing all this other stuff. And so I would maybe have time as well. So I think it's a common thread for us, whether it's just photography in general or certain types of photography. And why I think this is so interesting, tying it into like the joy and the passion and all this stuff of photography, is taking wherever we are and trying to find the path in, right? And that's what, Derek, we were talking about that earlier. And so with that in mind, I mean, now you're kind of on the hook, like you kind of have to do photography because we're talking about it, but what would be a path in for you? What would help get you from 0 to 1, not to 10, to get out there this week to go shooting? Like what would be interesting enough or motivating enough or something to get you out there?
Yeah, well, I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. I mean, I know I do, like, especially if I'm worried about time, like I'm thinking if I make the time to go out, like I better get something good. Like
Yeah,
it better be worth the time of me going out. And
yeah,
I think that's exactly the wrong way of looking at it. Like from hearing everything that you're talking about, like, you know, you it like I always have a problem like being mindful and being in the moment, and having that extra level of pressure like makes you feel um like I'm trying to find some kind of like formula to like capture the best photo that I can, but there's no for like you have to like just kind of let yourself go and let go of all that and
yeah.
be mindful, be in the moment and let that explore and drive you. If you get something, great. If you don't, you don't, but like not put all this like pressure on yourself to like actually go out and capture.
Yes, I love that. I mean, this is so insightful. A lot of wisdom, like self-imposed pressure. And Derek, I'm sure you can relate to that. Where like, and I think that's for me going back. I'm trying, to the ocean. I'm like, well, it better be good, and then otherwise, kind of waste of time. Then I have these images to deal with, even. But I think trying to tune that down and be like, let me just go from 0 to 1. I'm not going to get a 10. How do I let go of that self-imposed pressure? And then maybe second is subject matter, is kind of thinking about what subject matter would be interesting. So for me, I'm just going to, and then I'll ask you, but like, let's say with the ocean, which I should go do, it has to be low tide. Like around here, our beaches and stuff in the ocean is just so much more beautiful at low tide and at sunset. So tide changes, multiple times a day, and it doesn't always line up. So for me, it would be like, well, I could just look up on the calendar. The next time there's a low tide, a negative low tide at sunset, I'm going to go out with my camera. And so just kind of finding some rough parameters and some subject matter. And so maybe flipping it back to you, what would a couple parameters be? Like, it could be like, I'm going to go do some city stuff on my lunch break. And while I do that, I'm going to go try to do just like a small person in a geometric space, like the guy walking in the shadow or something. You kind of have like, what could be something that would get you out there with that in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, I guess, fascinated by like looking at like the mundane aspects of life and like using that as a way to like see how people live. I think that kind of photography is fascinating to me. We actually had a while ago, Micah Cash. I actually bought his photo book, Waffle House. I thought like it's so much, he like goes into like waffle houses around the country and just like takes a shot like out the window, and you see like you get a little bit of like the interior of the restaurant where he's sitting, and then you see like the different exteriors, like some of them are in a gas station, parking lot of a Walgreens, whatever. But I think that's so fascinating, just to like see different environments and see how other people live in different parts of the world, different parts of the country. So, I've always thought of doing something like around that theme. I guess I just don't know like
Yeah.
how to materialize that and where to begin.
Well, let's do this. Let's workshop this. So like, let's say you're in New York, obviously. What time of day would you be able to find a window of time to go capture images?
Well, you're asking the hard questions.
I know. I'm getting nitty gritty here.
If I can jump in for a second,
Yeah,
I
jump
think
in.
as somebody who, unfortunately, Danny has to work next to me when I'm in office.
Yeah.
His desk is next to mine, and he probably dreads it every time I'm coming into the office. But on the commute, I think the commute is such a
Yeah, I've
such a
actually thought
drag.
about that.
And I think it would be so cool and to not put pressure on yourself to just document it. And who did we have? We interviewed somebody the other day. Which interview was it? Oh, it was Jesse. It was Jesse Marlowe that we interviewed, and he's talking about projects that take 9-10 years for him to complete. And I think that when you look at it in that perspective, where it's like, just take pictures. Don't think of it as an end product. Just think of it as, I'm going to start just taking pictures on my commute to and from. You got the scooter.
Yeah, I know. I've wanted to like actually take pictures like on the bus of like, but then like, I don't know. I get nervous about it. I don't want other people like seeing that I'm taking, like it gets like, and then I get out of my head and like start thinking about like, what are other people thinking about me? They don't want their picture taken. I'm like, people just want like a normal commute on the bus, and they don't want some weird guy taking their picture. So like, I would love to do that. I just like have to kind of work through that in my mind a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, all of this, this is really fun. And Danny, thank you for kind of playing along, because hopefully this is relatable to people and is coming up with these ways that do fit who we are and how we roll in the world, so to speak. Like, some people are just super comfortable getting in people's face and shooting whatever. And if we're not, we don't have to force that. But I think kind of coming up with a few strategic things. One, which is like a commute. And then second, so we have like we have a fixed window of time where it's not going to like break the bank, so to speak. You don't have to like take 3 days off of work and go to find Waffle Houses in upper New York. I mean, you could, but that's like, there's more resistance to that kind of a project. So you do it on a commute, and then you just say 10 photos, and you're like 10 clicks. I got to do 10 clicks this morning. And that could just be as simple as, people's feet approaching the bus stand, all these. It doesn't necessarily have to be like confrontational of like the person sitting across from you on the bus, if that makes sense. But is that a project that you could embrace? Like 10 photos, commute, boom.
I guess I have to now.
You have to.
You're giving me an assignment.
He's got no choice.
Assignment.
What am I going to say?
Yeah. And then will you share the photos? When is it due? 1 week from today?
Oh boy. 1 week. Okay.
Why don't we do this, Chris? Next time we have you on.
Yeah.
Because it's inevitable.
Yeah.
You're a regular fixture here now.
Do it next week. We'll just do it. Find a little window of time next week. A little mini session, a little 10-minute, 20-minute session.
Now I got homework. What did I agree to?
Danny's commuter project. I love it. I mean, I have the calendar up here. I can book something. We can book it right now.
Let's book it. You pick it. I'm there. And then maybe to make it fair, I think, Derek, you and I should have an assignment as well. because it's no fun to just, it's not fair to have it. And I think too, for those listening, part of what I'm getting at too, we're playing here and we're friends, and so we can do this. But as creatives, we need these kind of things in order to keep going. And I know my mentors and teachers and colleagues, they have encouraged me. My mentor yesterday was talking about this idea. She said, Chris, I think that you need to find a way to have equanimity or peace or stillness on the edges of your areas of comfort. And so there's some areas of my life where I'm just not comfortable. Like, for example, photographing on the bus. I'm not comfortable in that close quarters. Subway, maybe that's a little easier, but trying to, but the whole point is like, she just is encouraging me, like, don't just do what's comfortable in life, but like stretch yourself. And so I was like, okay, great. And that's part of what leads to growth. And I imagine, Danny, if you did this, and you don't have to do this, but if you did do the assignment of commute, it would be scary, interesting, curious, cool, and rewarding, right? And you would be like, yeah, okay, I just broke a 2-year streak of not shooting, and now I did.
Yeah.
Cool. And what I used to do at the college level when I would teach is I would have students, in order to cultivate their creativity, I would have them do things like this. And part of it, I would always have them do assignments that were non-photographic. So for example, and they would self-select these, I would give them ideas, but like this one really, really shy girl, she decided to wear 2 different shoes for an entire day. And so she had like one, white Converse on and one Adidas on or something, and then she reported back to the class, as everyone did. And she said she was so nervous, like her heart was just like racing, her face was red, she couldn't breathe, and she walked out. And then the whole day, no one said anything. And she said, I realized that no one really cares, and that I think way more about this than other people. And in a way, it gave her this courage to just take small risks, and this was college kids. And so we could do all these fun things. This one college kid did something where he set his alarm to go off, and on the 45-minute, and wherever he was, he would lay down for 3 seconds. And so like if he was in the grocery store and his alarm went off, he would just like lay on the ground and he would stand up, and they would do all these crazy things. But I guess the point being is that when we do creative acts, it generates creative energy in unexpected ways. I think especially when we do like photographic assignments, we don't necessarily have to wear 2 shoes, although that would be interesting. And that's part of how we can cultivate an approach to life, which leads to finding more passion, more purpose, and more joy, and all that kind of stuff. And so I want to add one more thing to your assignment, if I can, Danny. Are you up for taking the assignment?
I will do it. I think this is exactly what I need.
Okay, so this is going to get harder though.
Uh-oh.
We're going advanced.
I don't know.
Okay, 10 photos, 10 commute photos, 3 portraits of people you work with.
Okay.
Window light, some kind of portrait engaged thing. And the way you do the portraits is, I have this assignment. You go to someone, you say, I'm doing this assignment. Could you ever help me out? And whenever you ask people for help in photography, they always say yes. If you just say, can I take your portrait? They say, why? What's it for? But if you start it, just say, I'm doing this thing. I got this dumb assignment where I have to photograph portraits of people I work with. Derek, will you do this, or whoever? And then, so that way we have you're practicing some journalistic slice of life. And then you're also, you're just more of an observer. And then now you're also practicing the craft of engaging, which is another side of photography, muscle, another aspect of it. So it's kind of like if you're working out at the gym, we're doing the upper body and the lower body, not just one. Are you up for that?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it.
We even have the Chris Orwig tip of even just having the camera out and visible.
Yeah.
Already it arouses that suspicion, or not suspicion, that what's the word I'm looking for? Curiosity.
Yeah.
It arouses the curiosity of people saying, what are you taking images of? What are you taking?
Yeah. So you have the camera on your shoulder when you walk up to someone at work and say, hey, yeah, I'm doing this thing. And so you do it in the moment. You can't be in the bag. Can't be like, yeah, we'll do it tomorrow. I mean, if they need time, you could give them time, but yeah, having the camera visible really helps.
Yeah.
Do portraits of cardboard cutouts of people count? Because we have a really nice cardboard cutout of Shaquille O'Neal right next to my desk. So,
but you don't work with him, so I know those do not count. Those do not count unless it was Shaq with his cardboard cutout. Then it would count. So if it was like the person, with their
might be a little hard.
I think that the New York leg of that commute would make it prime, especially on the block anywhere within a 1-2 block of vicinity of B&H. I think would be easier because I think you'll have people that are more in tune to photography, and it might not be so alarming. You might run into some people who are on their way to B&H. I think it'd be kind of cool. It's a chance also to connect with people.
Yes.
And he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah.
Oh my gosh, how did you guys rope me into this?
I thought I was just coming on to talk for 5 seconds, and now
I know you were, but it evolved. I evolved. This is the beauty of it.
Look, Chris and I are gonna do it as well.
Okay, what's Derek? You give me an assignment, I'll give you one too, because we gotta play the game. If we're gonna dish it out, we gotta take it.
Okay, I want you to. Oh man, this is so tough.
Danny, you could give the assignment too if you have something to mind.
Yeah, you have any ideas, Danny?
Well, see, you guys are pros.
All right, so I have one. I have one for Chris.
Okay.
I want something transformative. I want you to take the theme of just hecticness, stuff being haywire, stuff that's normally unsettling, and capture it in a way that is not. So does that make sense?
Yeah, keep going.
So
right.
I want you to show how personal approach can really be impacted through photos.
Okay.
How a busy street, you ever see those pictures of a just completely busy street, but someone takes a really like a slow motion video and they have the light right and it makes it so peaceful.
Yeah.
I want you to transform noise, just busyness and stuff that's not, take the opposite of peaceful and make it peaceful, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. How many pictures?
Well, Danny, what do we think is fair? You have to do 10 pictures on a commute. I would say 10 pictures in a week, whatever we decide the period is when we're gonna revisit.
Okay. 10.
Is that doable?
10's my number.
10.
Okay.
So why don't we do this? 10 images. Danny, 10 images, no matter how many you shoot.
Yeah.
We're looking for a collection of 10 images.
Well, that plus your 3 portraits.
I got 13. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, you got 13.
13. So let's keep it unevenly even. 13,
Okay.
13 for Danny, Chris 13.
Yeah. Okay.
And 13 for me.
And then you don't have your assignment yet. But here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm thinking for your assignment. Let's see. Hold up your arms real quick. Let me see your arms. Let me see your tattoos. Look at these tattoos. I mean, look at these things. These are amazing.
What do we got?
Yeah.
Pizza slice.
Yeah.
Venice Beach pizza slice right there.
Okay. So let me just try to formulate this, but I'm feeling tattoo is important. Male subjects, no shirt.
Male subjects, no shirt.
Shirtless tattoo portraits.
Shirtless tattoo portraits. I'm gonna be walking up the guy. I live in
the
Bronx.
winter.
In the Bronx, I'm gonna be walking up the guys. I live right across the street from the projects. This is gonna be funny. Hey, can you take your shirt off?
Maybe that's too hard. Okay, maybe it's like, okay, maybe it doesn't have to be shirtless, but maybe it's like, if it were me, yeah, my little skinny arms. But if it were me, it's like something that's like really showing off the tattoo. Like if I were to photograph you in your t-shirt like this, I wouldn't even really know you have tattoos. So maybe you could the clothing, figure out the clothing. It doesn't have to have a shirt off, but just something where like you know, where like I'm getting like, you know, if it was you, maybe you're getting creative, and but I can really see tattoos versus like, oh, hey, that's a cool portrait, and that person happens to have a tattoo. So tattoo is the theme. Like I want to
Tattoo is the
showcase
theme.
tattoo portraits, like 5 of them. So 5 people that have rad art and that is really showing it. So you know, if they had like a chest one and like it was like they, you know, they're showing their tattoo. I mean, just yeah,
Yeah.
or if they're like ripped and they're like having on their biceps and you're just like, yeah, man. But something that's like has this energy of a little bit of an edge to it and a little bit of a celebration of tattoo art. 5 people.
All
How
right.
does that? Is that
All
fair?
right. All right. So why don't we do this? Let's give us some time
Okay.
so that we can create.
Yeah.
I say we set something up for January after the
Perfect.
holiday, after the new year.
Yeah.
We'll touch base. We'll see when Chris is good. Danny, we're here. We're here
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
And we do it. We see what we came up with,
Yeah.
and we revisit this and go over some images.
Well, I say what we do is each of us have a week to do it, and then we present whenever we present. I think we need a short timeline. I mean, I
Okay.
think in order to like get creative, because the point is to like
Force
like
yourself into creating.
yeah, like it's kind of like if we give it a month, we all know we're gonna wait till like the last 3 days to do it.
Guilty.
You know, Danny's gonna be like dreading it and not
All
doing
right.
it. And
A
then we do
week.
it, and then we reshoot it, and then we like make it all nice. It's like, no, dude, if you wanna have joy, passion, and purpose, you just go out and do it.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that.
So I think 7 days, images are done, and then we figure out a time when we can hop on and we can reflect on the experience and share some
There we
more.
go. I'm gonna create a Dropbox.
Okay.
Share a Dropbox link with you guys. 7
Yeah.
days. We got 7 days to dump those images in there.
And then Danny, do you have a camera you can use? I mean, I know
I
you
do.
work at UNH.
Yes.
Okay. Your own camera?
Yeah.
What is it?
I have what is it? A Sony A7C.
Okay. Oh, amazing. And what kind of
Yeah.
lenses do you have?
I just have the kit lens, whatever, 24 to 105, I think.
Okay.
Perfect.
Also, I have some other stuff that I could use too.
Can we hook up Danny with a good portrait lens for his portraits? Do we have access to that at UNH?
Like what would you recommend?
Well, I'd love to see you shoot a portrait with an 85 or 50.
Ooh,
I think 50
yeah.
would be my focal length.
50?
50 or 85. I think
Yeah.
either one of those would just, I think that would be a really good challenge. The kit lens that takes the challenge out of the way because you're just like zoom, zoom, zoom. It's like it's not as hard. It's not as committed. It's you know, so a lens where you commit to it. I mean, and even if I don't know about gear, but if I was able to design this, I would say like, yeah, you have a 35 for your commute, fixed 35, and then you have a fixed 50 or 85, your choice for the portraits.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do it.
We'll see what we could dig up.
And then what are you going to shoot with, Derek?
That's a good question. Are you going to give me restrictions here?
Maybe. Let's think about it.
So portrait. Why don't we do this? I'll take an extra challenge. I'll shoot it super wide.
Okay.
I have an 8:16 crop body, so you're looking at like, what is that, like a 13 to 14 to 24?
Or how about, well, then if you're going to do that, why don't you do, if that was the assignment, I would want 2. I would want a wide and I would want an up close. So I'd want like shoot, just saying, hey man, I'm doing this thing, gonna do this tattoo.
Uh-oh. Chris, you
Lost
froze,
it.
right? I swear I didn't do that. That wasn't me. We'll wait for Chris to unfreeze so I can get the rest of my assignment.
Yeah, you're in the dark now.
I think I'm gonna give him 5 seconds, and if not, I'm making my own rules. Anything goes. And for those of you watching and listening out there, if you guys want to join in, feel free to join in. We love when people get involved.
Yeah, everybody else should have an assignment too.
Look, I think everybody's got to give themselves an assignment, and we're gonna give the whole event space team assignments. I think everybody on the team has to have an assignment. So Danny, I'm gonna give you the assignment of assigning those in the office, and then we'll have to come together and give the old big chief an assignment. We'll wait for Chris to jump back on here so we can close this out proper.
I see a comment here from Big Chief that she supports the shack cutout idea. So I don't know if she overrides Chris, but
no, it's too easy. And the Big Chief isn't allowed to have a shack project either. We got to be challenging here. We'll give Chris a minute here. Thanks for everybody who's been hanging on with us here and watching, listening. For those of you who are not familiar with Danny, Danny is the man behind the boards that makes all this happen. There he is. He's back. We got you muted, Chris. Just unmute for us there. There we go.
Okay. Now, my internet died, so I'm connecting through my phone. So hopefully that works. Who knows?
Yes. All right. So
maybe. Do you like that wide and up close?
So I got to do wide and up close. All right. I'm up for the challenge. Challenge.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, we all have our challenges.
Well, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'll connect us. We'll all jump on an email thread after this, and we'll make it happen. And to all of you out there hanging with us, thanks for hanging out a little extra. Chris, thank you for hanging extra. And as always, thank you, Sony, for hosting these wonderful events that allow us to tap into our creative nature. So I'm going to leave it right there. Danny, you want to take us out today? I feel like it's, this is your day.
It's my day. I get the outro.
There we go.
Thank you, everybody, for joining the B&H Virtual Event Space. Have a great day, everybody.